Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. In prior videos on this channel, we've discussed so-called holes in work permit and visa status and how that relates to permanent residence application. When I say holes, what I'm talking about is one may have forgotten to go ahead and extend, for example, their B visa extension. They may not have renewed their B visa extension, and that results in an expiration of the underlying visa, which results in the need to do what's called a border run, leave the country, get a new B visa, come back into the country, and seek extension thereafter. Which basically, if you look at it from the standpoint of immigration's perspective, there was a hole where one was no longer in lawful status. Essentially, their lawful status lapsed. The same thing can happen with respect to work permits. Work permits can basically result in a hole. You can have a hole with respect to, for example, a B visa extension. It's extended for a whole year, but one's work permit, which is not directly tied to that underlying B visa, that work permit could go ahead and expire during the course of that year. I've seen folks, they just forget the the work permit goes expired, and they go ahead and apply for a new work permit rather than a renewal. And yeah, okay, there may be a 2-week sort of time delay, but there was this period where the work permit was expired and then a new work permit was obtained, but there's like this period where there's a hole in that person's lawful employment status. I've talked about that with respect to permanent residence. There seems to be a new phenomenon going on specifically with respect to multiple entry B visas and work permits for folks that have multiple entry B visas. In subsequent applications for B visas, I've been seeing the Labor Department now is taking the position under certain circumstances, and this is highly circumstantial. So there are going to be certain circumstances where this isn't an issue and certain circumstances where this is, but we're seeing more and more Labor Department is failing to renew, let me be specific on that, renew a work permit based on the notion that that individual using multi-entry B visa was abroad, and it resulted in a lapse in their underlying B visa status, and therefore, notwithstanding the fact that they're back in the country in a 90-day B status, I've seen Labor now making the determination that they want to go ahead and see people apply for a whole new work permit rather than simply renew it. Now, this can be a rather convoluted process. It can require the cancellation of the old work permit, the reapplication for the new one, and some additional costs associated therewith. But that being said, again, it's circumstantially dependent. I've seen some folks where it wasn't ruled that, and it mostly seemed to be based on sort of the timings of their reentries and how, if there really was sort of a seamless B status maintained throughout. But that seems to be, at the present time, an issue that the Thai Labor Department is having with respect to immigration status. And there's always kind of a little bit of friction, if you will, or tension in between these two institutions because, again, immigration is not necessarily tied to the Labor Department. And meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which actually issues one-year multiple entry B visas, is not directly influenced because they're all three different organizations. They don't have the same rules with respect to all these things. So there is some redundancy in many ways, and there's some, for lack of a better term, organizational conflict with respect to the internal rules of these bureaucracies that can have an impact on a very practical level with respect to somebody who's staying in Thailand with a work permit on a multiple entry non-immigrant B visa and, oftentimes doing border runs in and out of the kingdom, or even not even doing border runs necessarily, just making business trips in and out of the kingdom. It may have issues with respect to, it may cause issues with respect to a subsequent application for a work permit extension.